Well, Donald Trump's historic hush money criminal trial has reached a new level of absurdity. At least he's entertaining, eh? The court's now been given inside details into how Trump would dictate his tweets to an aide instead of writing them himself. And apparently he is very particular about grammar. My recollection, this is a quote, my recollection is there are certain words he liked to capitalise.
That's a factual recollection.
Trump's former personal secretary, Madeleine Westerhout, told the court. Words like country, he liked to use exclamation points. It is my understanding that he liked to use the Oxford comma. Very important stuff, eh? And this is from the Sydney
Let's all
Morning
pretend we know
Herald.
what the Oxford comma is.
Oh, that's all I'm here for. That's all
I'll be honest, the bogan at this end's going, oh yeah, the Oxford comma.
Well, the
grateful.
Oxford comma comes after and but,
Right, okay.
etc.
I'm an Oxford comma user.
I converted. I converted.
Did you?
I absolutely.
And then
You're on board with it?
It's the
absolutely
vaping again,
hate
Joe.
the Oxford comma. I was warned at an early age not to use it, so
Yes.
this may swing my support away from Trump.
It's interesting because I know
You're going to vote Biden. You're all in on Biden.
in South Australia, it was all through the education system. There was no Oxford comma, but I know that in other states it was different. And how good's this? This is in the Sydney Morning Herald via the UK Telegraph. Quote. Giving evidence for the prosecution, Westerhout provided details about Trump's workflow for communicating via Twitter, his preferred social media platform, until the end of his presidency in 2020. Trump did not use a computer or have an email address, to the best of her knowledge. He preferred to dictate his tweets to her, she said. Westerhout, whose desk was positioned directly outside the Oval Office, said she would take notes, quickly type up the draft and print it out for him. Occasionally, Trump would have more edits. She told the court she soon learned what made a signature Trump tweet. I mean, Paul, you had the great, well, it depends how you look at it, the great testimony from Little Miss Porn Star about exactly how it all went down.
Pretending you don't know her name's Stormy Daniels, but okay.
How it all went down in the bedroom, etc. The most gory details you could possibly ask for.
Goodness me.
Now we're into the minutiae of how he does and doesn't write his tweets. This is fantastic, isn't it?
And it proves what about the crime? Like, this is again, at the absolute heart of what is playing out in New York, which of course he'll be found guilty of, and of course will be sent, to the maximum effect of, not because he is guilty or it is a crime, but because it's the only one they're going to be able to pin on him between now and November, all right? This is a trial, not about the hush money, but about how the payments were written down in how they were declared. Now, no one missed out, no one got defrauded. Who? I'm not entirely sure. But then again, he already had the best part of $500 million fine put on him for a loan that he paid back. The bank turned around and said they had no problem.
Exactly.
So you've got this scenario where, very obviously, if they think there's a case there, then go and prove that case. All of this is about what? Like even Bill Maher, right, lefty comedian, turns around and pointed out this weekend that the Stormy Daniels thing was bad. Because if you're sitting there in the jury room trying to go, okay, got my head on, this is basically an accounting trial. Why do we need to know about dinner? Why do we need to know what did and didn't happen? Other than this is all just rubbing his nose in it. And here, the idea of you might have been the most powerful person in the world, but he couldn't even put out a tweet. Look, what is the point of that?
I know, and it doesn't.
Let alone him sitting there for 4 weeks. And again, over 40 years, he would have either had or developed, in my view, one of those sort of ADHD brains that can't sit still for a minute because he's always doing something. And part of the punish is sit there and watch us rub your nose in it for 4 weeks. You can't say anything about it. If you do say something about it, we'll find that as another way. So to me, it's an example of what lefties, frankly, have always talked about the criminal justice system being excessively punitive when it wants to be.
But it doesn't actually really affect him, I don't think. I mean, for goodness sake.
On the polls, but if you've got to go to jail, you can't speech your way out of it.
I know, but the bloke had an affair.
Yeah, sorry.
Was there an Oxford comma in the bedroom, I wonder? But the bloke had an affair.
No, it was more of an ampersand.
Big bloody deal.
I honestly thought,
and I don't think anyone seriously cared. No one cared.
I wondered what I was missing when everyone was talking about this Oxford comma. I thought, did Stalin use it or Hitler? Like, why do people care so much?
This actually shows that he's not the sort of, knuckle-dragging, ill-educated, redneck dolt that's been cast as. This is a man of great sophistication. And I've been trying throughout the entire show, when you thought I was talking and paying attention and listening, I was just trying to think of an example where the Oxford comma actually comes into its own. So the Oxford comma is when you say, if you were to say like Tom, Dick and Harry, right? Most of the time you just say Tom, comma, Dick and Harry. The Oxford comma is if you went Tom, comma, Dick, comma, and Harry.
Yeah, otherwise you're doing Dick and Harry
And so
together.
you would say, that's right. So you would say that's, now if you say, you know, my friends' names are Tom, Dick and Harry, that's completely fine. But there are certain scenarios in which an Oxford comma can completely change
Yes.
the meaning of a sentence. I couldn't for the life of me remember one. So I've made one up for your benefit.
No, tell me.
Come on,
All of us.
Everyone at home, get a pen.
Imagine
It's like a podcast on. I am listening.
Imagine, funny you should say that. Imagine, for example, that there was a story in the newspaper about me and a dog that kept humping my leg, right?
Righto, yes.
Oh, good
And
grief.
so
This is a real story.
Students, are you taking notes?
someone in
Real
here said,
story.
Cadets, journalists
Yeah.
of tomorrow,
Lean forward.
pull out a pen.
Professor Hildebrand is telling your story.
On television, kids. And so, without an Oxford comma, this would read as follows.
Please.
This is a story about Joe, comma, who loves reading, comma, board games and crosswords and sexually aroused animals.
Excellent.
But if you put in the Oxford comma, this is a story about Joe, who loves reading, board games and crosswords, comma, and sexually aroused animals.
Well,
Suddenly,
I'm a bit concerned about why you
whole
love them.
reputation-
but, oh my God!
That still sounds perverse.
Yeah, I know. Either way, Joe, it's
what
not.
a world.
I'm not saying it's all good.
I can testify that Joe never makes notes on any topic.
No, no, no,
I
but
sit
this
next
is the
to him.
first
He
This
had
is
to.
the first time he
He had to on this. We
properly
might have to ban Joe from giving that kind of advice in future. And speaking of both